Welcome to Second Listen Saturday on the Parenting Roundabout podcast, where we share some fun moments from a past episode for your weekend listening pleasure. Look for new episodes every Monday through Friday.
Risky Business, and not the movie.
I was listening to a book on Audible a while back, and one of the things that the writer asked was, would you rather your child be safe or strong? And this author's opinion, it was, of course, part of this talk that we see a lot of lately about parents these days coddling their kids too much, helicoptering their kids too much, never letting their kids out of the house, not letting their kids have experiences, wanting safety paramount above all things. And this author's opinion was that you have to let your kid take risks to make them a strong adult, and that if you don't do that, then you are impairing them for the future. And to some degree, I agree with that. I mean, I see the point. I do see the point. But at the same time, I mean, I'm parenting kids who are particularly vulnerable due to their disabilities. I've pushed them to do things, and sometimes it's worked out, and sometimes in retrospect, I think, what the heck was I thinking? That was too much. Why was I forcing them to do this thing? So, you know, I do think it's important for the kids to take risks. And on the other hand, I am constantly afraid that something bad will happen, and then I will wonder why I ever did that thing or forced them to do that thing. Is it not possible for them to be both safe and strong? Can we where is the line of safe risk?
Right.
Or to give the kids the illusion. I mean, I always say that I like to have them take risks with a safety net underneath.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? So I thought that's something we could talk about. I mean, lately I've been, big on my kids getting jobs. I feel it's important for them to work. I feel it's important for them to have meaningful work, for them to be out in the community, for them to be, making money and having a purpose and a reason for getting up in the morning, just like everybody else. But at the same time, after I drop them off at the job, I am then a bundle of neuroses. What if people are picking on them? What if they're being taken advantage of? I would have no way of knowing. I have one kid who doesn't tell me things. So, I'm still, even now with young adults, I'm forcing them to take the risks, but then I'm really afraid of the consequences. Do you guys tie yourself into knots up like this too? Have you found a comfortable compromise between, risk and safety? Do you feel that a certain amount of risk is important to create strong, healthy adults? Or do you just think, let's just wrap them in bubble wrap and keep them in the closet and, just duck this whole question at all? Catherine, you have kids in sports, so there's always risk in that. You've sent your kid on a luge, so yes. you've made some peace with risk, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge because they both do sports that are risky. I mean, most sports have some degree of risk to them, but some are worse than others. And, ice is a hard surface.
Yes.
So there's always a risk of injury. And especially after my daughter got one concussion, which did not happen on the ice, but, it's really bad to get more than one concussion. More than one is... it's just the risk increases exponentially every time you have one concussion. So putting her back out on the ice after that was very scary.
Yeah.
We did get her some, this protective headband. And that was one of those things, it was kind of the safety net, and it was almost more of a psychological safety net for both of us than it was. Yeah. I spoke to the doctor about it, the sports medicine doctor, and I showed her this thing, and I was like, is this like a total waste of money, or should we do it? Mm-hmm. Or, and she said, I was expecting her to be like, that's never going to do anything. But, but she said, no, it could help. And also it will help her feel more protected. And then she will take the risks that she needs to take. Mm-hmm. So, and you mentioned the luge, one of the big reasons I did that and allowed that was because the physical risk was countered by the sort of emotional benefit that he was going to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was at a point where he was really not feeling confident about himself and his abilities and about like what made him special. And so being able to do something like that was valuable, you know, even if it was physically risky and even if it involved, you know, financial costs and missing school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing that you have to weigh like all the time. You know, now I have the driver and that's scary, but obviously she needs, for me, I guess it's more about, not so much safe versus strong, but, it has a lot to do with independence.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of driving, obviously there are many risks, but there's also value in independence,
right,
and problem solving kind of things that are involved with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my things has been I have at least one kid who doesn't want to be independent and who doesn't want to take risks and has always had anxiety about it. And I have pushed that child to do things in the feeling that you got to take chances. You got to do these things. You got to try things. You can't just stay in your room all day. It's not good for you. It's not healthy. And in some ways, it's paid off very, very well. But it's also paid off in, you know, significant problems with anxiety. So when is it the parent's choice? You know, is it okay if you have a kid who doesn't want to do things to just let them have their, you know, small little safe life? Or do you have to say, look, I know better than you. These things are important. And it's just with this one child been a real, you know, there's been pluses, but there have been significant minuses. And, you know, when you're the parent and you're the person making the decision, no, this is important for you to do, then it's all on you with the consequences, you know. So how about you, Nicole? Have you been dealing with this with your kids? How have you drawn that line?
Oh, it's such a big topic for me to grasp because I feel like most of their life has been about obviously, you know, they're trying new things and doing new things, but I think maybe it's there's a little bit more risk involved than, you know, for some kids, because having moved here, first of all, when they were at a very pivotal age, you know, one was in grade 1 and the other one was in grade 6. That was a huge risk for our family, which involved them. Yeah. And then everything for them since has been a big, you know, putting them out there in this new school and new culture and new, you know, people and new school system and everything that they've tried. I mean, you know, whether it's been from playing water polo that we're never familiar with water polo before, or just so many different aspects of being in a new country per se, where like my husband and I didn't even really know how things could go. Right. It was just because I think if you're a little bit more familiar with it, then you can weigh the risks appropriately. Right. But some situations, we didn't even know what the risks were. Right. So it was like, okay, go try this. You know, we think it'll be great. And then all of a sudden, do you know what I mean? Like there's all this stuff that we didn't think of. So and then I feel like for the last, you know, 9 or 10 years, we've been up against that. We've been going through the risks together with our kids. Now, you know, the longer we've been here and the more familiar we're becoming and knowing how to access information and resources from our community, then it kind of helps us a little bit, you know, weigh the risks a little bit more. But now, you know, I'm at a different point in my life with them because one has left home and is, you know, now he's back. And that's an entirely different topic altogether because you're not there to help them weigh the risks and what's good and bad. And you kind of just have to put them out there in the world and hope that they make the right decisions. And then my daughter is getting ready to apply to colleges. And so that in itself is another big concerned because, okay, well, where does she want to go and how far away from home? And can she handle living in a dorm?
Right. This is the girl who won't go to camp and won't have sleepovers.
Yeah. Yeah, but now twice now in the last year, she's been to Canada on her own.
Yeah.
And spent a significant amount of time away from us when she did that, and did it quite successfully and loved it. So, and I think, I guess through it all, our kind of value or our wish for them when they were doing these things and trying new things was just to be able to give them the skills to live, in our in our environment, in our world, right? Like to give them the skills that they're going to need as they become adults and are adults. And that's kind of been our big motivator is like, will this help them become, a more confident adult or give them skills to interact with their world? Mm-hmm. Because I've seen the flip side of it too, where there are kids who are now these are kids who don't have significant visible disabilities or any kind of, because you had talked about with your kids, Terry, that there were some things that you needed to think about and take into consideration when you were putting your kids out there. But, for these kids, I've seen them very sheltered, and I don't know if that's a good idea either.
Yeah. It's, I know. I mean, even though I have reasons for possibly sheltering my kids, I don't think it's good for them. But it's like, it's finding the degree of acceptable risk. I mean, I've been accused of being too coddling, and I've been accused of not being coddling enough. And
that's how you know you're in the right spot.
Well, I'm always arguing on the other side of whatever people are saying. Right. If I'm doing too much, it's like, but I have my reasons. And if I'm not doing enough, it's like, well, but they need to learn these things. Constant turmoil.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Did you feel like you took more risks when you were a kid than your kids take now, or you were encouraged to more? Do you think it's changed and the parents today are different, or do you think it's just that the venues for people to criticize parents publicly have increased?
Well, I mean, we hear certainly all the time, and it was my experience too, that when we were kids, we were way more free range, just wandering the neighborhood for hours on end. And our kids don't really do that, although I feel like my town and my neighborhood are safe, and I allow my kids to, go to the pool by themselves, go to the library, go to a friend's house, whatever. But there's not that gang of kids roaming the neighborhood thing going on that we had when we were kids.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like there was a much stronger network of parents watching out for kids back then. Everybody, I mean, we were free range roaming the neighborhood, but everybody's mother was home looking out the window. And you would go to people's houses and there would be a parent there. I don't think that kids today could necessarily do that.
I don't know. I felt like my families or my friends' parents were very hands off, and I don't know.
Yeah?
I didn't see them peeking out windows. And
really?
We were
different neighborhoods, I
guess. Out on the street, and that was it. Didn't come home till the siren went off.
Yeah. Well, then you definitely were in a much more. I remember doing stupid, risky things in high school, like driving crazy with people and or in other people's cars, and at that age doing things very independently. But younger, I feel like there was always people watching us and making sure we didn't do anything. And reporting into our parents if we did something wrong.
Yeah.
But today, I don't know if that's the case.
Well, it seems like today there is a conflict between what everyone's definition of risk and appropriate behavior is, right? So, you have one parent who's like, of course my child can walk to the park by themselves. And then you have another parent who calls the police because there's an unattended child, you know? So it's, people don't agree on what is acceptable. So then it causes some big problems,
It does.
Yeah, it does. And it's like, there is no one For your kid, it may be too much of a risk to send them to the park by themselves. For somebody else's kid, it's just fine. But you don't really know that. And, if it's okay for my kid to go there, but there's some kids there who will engage in dangerous behavior, then it is no longer safe for my kid to go there. Yes. It's complicated. Like so many things.
Yes.
But
that is true.
I just wish there was... I wish I could make my peace with it, and just say either we are going to take risks and we are going to accept the consequences and that's just the way we roll, or we're just going to play things as safe as possible, and if people judge us, that's fine.
Right.
I need to do both and then feel judged on both sides.
Well, and also it's just you can't make it all into a black and white, because you have two different kids and you have a million different situations, and what's acceptable risk in one situation is unacceptable in another, and so you can't have like a bright line, I don't think.
Yeah. It's like I always tell my daughter about driving, that it's not enough to just drive well yourself. You have to look at how everybody else is driving and defensively get out of the way of people who are causing a problem. It's not, all of life is like that. And it's, you could advocate for your kid to have a job and it could be great, or you could advocate for your kid to have a job and there's a terrible person there who, talks them down and makes them feel terrible and hurts them or does something bad, involves them in something bad. And it doesn't mean you don't want your kid to get a job. It's like, how do you know?
Right.
How do you know what the right situation is? Especially when they're adults, you can't go down there. When my kid was in school, I at least felt that there were adult eyes on them that I can ask, hey, is anything going on that I need to know about? But when they're working, you really can't. And it's,
we've talked about this before, hard. How you need to just hide out in the break room. Just sit in the corner. You're not a large person. You can just be in the corner with your laptop.
I'll just be over here.
just
mind
observing.
Me. Or, what is it that the people are doing who are sending cameras to school with their kids to tape what the teachers are saying? I just need to stick one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have like backpack cameras and stuff.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
so I guess maybe I need to put one of those, like a little, like all those detective shows. We've talked about this before, where they have the little earpiece and they have the little camera on their lapel pin. I need that. I need to just do that for one day so I see what goes on. But then I'm going to see things that my kids do that will make me sad. And so I don't really want to. So
right.
I know. Part of you doesn't want to know.
Exactly. That's exactly the case. But then if something bad happens, I will just be I don't know. You got to do things, but then you got to lay down in the dark room and put the rag over your eyes and just feel your feelings about it.